Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. Thank you, Ranking Member Warren, and those members of the Senate Banking Committee and every senator who has made time for this important forum. My name is Palmer Heenan. As a trial attorney in the Office of Fair Housing at the Department of Housing and Urban Development, I bore witness to an ongoing and concerted effort by the Trump administration to cease enforcement of civil rights laws, including the Fair Housing Act, which HUD is required by law to enforce. These laws protect all Americans' access to housing. Yet current HUD leadership has enacted numerous policies designed to stop enforcement of the law, including by systematically punishing those who attempt to properly enforce the law or who blow the whistle on unlawful practices at the agency. I can speak to this personally. I was prevented by current HUD leadership from carrying out my statutory responsibilities and fired by this Trump administration in retaliation for carrying out my duty. I was tasked with enforcing the federal housing laws and made protected disclosures to Congress about the dismantling of HUD's mandated functions under the Fair Housing Act. I committed to being a fair housing lawyer because housing is fundamental to the lives of Americans and to a fair society. It was an honor to work at HUD, an agency created to safeguard the right to access housing. My work was nonpartisan. The ability to access housing decreases crime, keeps families safe, and increases economic productivity. Housing is about more than just where you sleep. It's about where your kids go to school, the job opportunities that are available to you, whether there's a factory emitting toxic pollution in your backyard, how close you are to a good dentist or doctor, and whether you and your family stay safe. Since it gained enforcement authority in 1988, HUD has always, regardless of politics, pursued cases against landlords, developers, cities, and towns who chose to harm the most disadvantaged members of their communities. Whether you lived in a city, the suburbs, or the heartland, HUD fought for you and your family to have access to safe, stable, and affordable housing. Today, HUD leadership has chosen to fail in its mission. This failure is being accomplished through a three-part strategy: getting rid of civil rights staff, constant interference in standard operating procedures, and weaponization of civil rights laws. HUD leadership has systematically starved fair housing enforcement of staff in order to prevent HUD from enforcing the law. Through firings, coerced resignations, and reassignments, the current administration has prevented prosecution of cases under a law that Congress has required it to enforce since the Reagan administration. However, the Fair Housing Act is not optional. It is a statutory requirement. Constant political interference in what has always been a neutral investigative and conciliation process has also prevented enforcement. In just a few short months, neutral and lawful processes were completely upended. Instead, every decision required the approval of just one person, resulting in an impossible bottleneck for an office that is supposed to prosecute housing discrimination across the country. The end result is that HUD is simply unable to prosecute cases required by law. Unlike other civil rights statutes and laws, Congress did not give HUD discretion to decline to prosecute cases. Instead, it required that HUD take all complaints from the public, neutrally investigate those cases, and where the investigation revealed that discrimination had occurred, to prosecute that discrimination. And for decades, trained investigators, conciliators, and attorneys did exactly that, until this administration changed course. At the same time as it has made it impossible to enforce civil rights statutes, HUD has taken steps to weaponize the laws it used to enforce, whether by bringing sham investigations against cities like Boston, halting critical funding to prevent people from becoming unhoused, or unilaterally changing funding requirements. HUD is using laws meant to protect every American to instead harm communities across the country. In a matter that has since become public, HUD issued a determination of a reasonable cause. That means HUD found evidence that discrimination occurred. In the case, hundreds of tenants claimed to have experienced horrific racial discrimination for years. They claimed that they were called racial epithets and threatened, and that one neighbor even called neo-Nazis to join in the harassment by leaving cotton seeds on their front doors. Yet, HUD chose to withdraw the referral of this charge for prosecution, despite the fact that doing so is not permitted by the Fair Housing Act, Once HUD has a reasonable cause to believe discrimination has occurred, it must prosecute the case. In another matter that has since been made public, people of a certain ethnicity were reportedly paying hundreds or even thousands of dollars a year more on their mortgages than people who were living just down the street. Despite having determined that discrimination occurred and having filed a charge before a judge, HUD leadership sought and obtained a dismissal of the case. Many of us who were or still at HUD are aware of countless similar cases withdrawn, settlements that were not approved, and investigations that were ended prematurely, or even after they had found evidence of discrimination. This is not normal. Dropping cases after finding such evidence is unprecedented. It has never happened before, and in practice, it's no different than refusing to enforce the act. And while cases are important, what really matters are the people those cases represent. The effects of the decisions of this administration have already been felt and will continue to be felt for months and years to come. People will be made homeless. People will have to accept substandard housing. Children will have to change schools. People will lose their jobs. Each case withdrawn, dismissed, or derailed is a person, a family, and a neighbor who has experienced discrimination in finding a home. The most fundamentally important thing to staying warm, to staying safe, and accessing the American dream.